Praise in the heavens of heavens, and ye waters that are above the heavens.
Let them praise the name of Yahweh, for he commanded, and they were created.
He has also established them forever. He has made a decree which shall not be transgressed.
Praise Yahweh from the earth, ye sea monsters and all deeps.
Fire and hail, snow and vapor.
Get you some confidants. Get you some people who you can actually talk about that with and let it out instead of letting the whole internet and the whole world be your therapy. It doesn't work out like that. Because what ends up happening is, and what people don't want to acknowledge and realize, is that when you start having people chime in on what you and your husband are going through, that makes you and your husband start arguing about the things that's going on. And I'm going to tell you why. Because a lot of married men, including myself, have dealt with this issue of everything was fine till you allowed your friends start chiming in on what we're doing, and now all of a sudden you feel differently about it. Not based off of Torah, not based off of right or wrong, just based off of what somebody else was talking about. And guess what? If the relationship breaks, you think that they're gonna come and make things better for you? They're not. And what happens? Who's left to pick up the pieces? The man and the woman, if they can pick up the pieces. And so I talk about this verse in particular when it says every wise woman builds her house, because let me tell you something, sisters. If that's your husband, that's your husband. Keep him in the place that he's supposed to be at all times. Regardless if he makes mistakes, y'all have to learn to work through that. Brothers, the same deal. If your wife is doing something that you don't like, you don't break her down in public. You don't sit down and say, oh, I'm tired of my wife doing this and I'm tired of my wife doing that. What do you think that does for you? What do you think that does for your relationship? And then how do you get past that later when you're trying to stop and say, hey, let's do this and let's be good? And then you know what happens. You come back later and you be like, hey, listen, Moreh, everything good? And I'm like, oh, yeah, everything's great. That's not what I heard. That's just how that goes down. And so guess what? There's going to be problems in life. People are going to have issues. Things are going to happen. But the reality is that discretion is the key to this all. Let your problems be the problems for your household, but always build up your house by keeping a strong unit. It goes on to read.
In the mouth of the foolish is a rod of pride.
Pride.
But the lips of the wise shall preserve them.
Right. That's that discretion again. The pride tells you that you can't apologize. Pride tells you, I don't want to talk to that person. I ain't got nothing to say to him, and he ain't got nothing to say to me. I ain't got nothing to say to her. You know what? She should have thought about that before she said it. That's what we live with, right? But then we come back later, and we say, oh, yeah, you know, sometimes I said something that I didn't mean to say. A lot of times we got to realize that everybody is not at the same level that we are at. And so when you realize that everybody's not at the same level that you're at, accept the fact that sometimes people make mistakes, and just because you wouldn't have made that mistake, that doesn't mean that they can't make that mistake. It reads.
Where no oxen are, the crib is clean.
Right?
But much increase is by the strength of an ox.
And so this is about discipline, right? Where no oxen are, the crib is clean. But much increase is by the strength of the ox. You can have the tools, but if you don't use them, it doesn't work. Our very holy scriptures, these words of wisdom that are left on record, if you don't read them and apply them, let me say that again. If you don't read them and apply them, it doesn't work. Because the reality is that you can have all the best things for you, but the thing that is going to make you wise, the thing that is going to make you profitable in life, are the words of the Most High God. And if we don't find profit in serving God, then it's things like this that will actually make us suffer from the things in life that the Most High God tests us with. It goes on to read.
A false witness will not lie. A faithful witness will not lie. but a false witness breatheth forth lies.
So see.
A scorner seeketh wisdom and findeth it not, but knowledge is easy unto him that hath discernment.
Yeah, so let's talk about this scorner. You know, it's amazing how you see people say, I want things to be better for me in my life. And, you know, I'm going to go to this source to see if this is like this, and go to that source to see if this is like that. And I'm going to watch this show. I'm going to read this self-help book. But you sit down and you tell people, you're like, hey, listen, maybe you need to talk to your parents about what you're going through because they might be able to help you. Oh, no, my mother, she don't know nothing. You know, I try and say this to people about this generation gap that we perpetuate. Nobody knows you better than your parents, not even you. And I'm going to tell you why. Because your parents remember what they went through at your age, and they actually watch you and see the same mistakes that they made and say, oh, this person is doing it now. And so sometimes it's like what we don't want to hear. Oh, when I was your age, I used to do that. And we stopped and we said, like, no, you didn't do that. Like, when you was my age, that was like how many years ago? And so when we look at it, you want to be better, you want to answer to your problem, but you don't want to listen. Because I'm telling you where the answers are at. If we don't look to the ways of old to understand how to move forward, we will remain stuck. And so, you ever see the person that goes to the doctor, but is like, oh, that doctor don't know what he's talking about? We want second, third, fourth, and fifth opinions. And that's okay. But at what point do you stop and say, this person is right? See, we want to be our own judge and jury. We want to be the one that stops and says, yes, I'm right, and yes, I'm wrong. But the reality in all of this is that wisdom, if it was already in you, we wouldn't make the mistakes that we make. So in understanding how to move forward, we stop and we say, there has to be somebody that I rely on that is going to actually tell me truth and has my best interests in mind. That's a true friend. That's a true companion, somebody that you need around. It just talked about the faithful witness, right? The faithful witness will not lie. Girl, what do you think about the other week when I went out on this date with him? I knew he wasn't no good. Everybody warned me that he wasn't no good, but I did it anyway. And what happened? He wasn't no good. I don't know why I keep doing these crazy things. Let me tell you about when I did my craziness. I sit down and I look at these conversations and I'm like, so you're actually going to glorify this moment. And that's what people do. But a false witness breatheth forth lies. A faithful witness will not lie, but a false witness breatheth forth lies. There's the thing about too. Either you're going to have people that actually tell you the truth and will make you better, or you surround yourself with people who will lie about you, and then at the end, it'll end up being your own destruction. It goes on to read.
7. Go from the presence of a foolish man, for thou wilt not perceive the lips of knowledge. The wisdom of the prudent is to look well to his way, but the folly of fools is deceit.
So see.
Amends pleadeth for fools, but among the upright there is goodwill.
Now I want us to talk about this. Go from the presence of a foolish man. I'm going to say this, and I want y'all to take it for what it's worth. You do not have to talk to everybody. Just because somebody wants to talk to you, you do not have to entertain them. It does not, I try to tell people this, it's like, just because you come and say, I want to have a conversation with you, that does not automatically obligate me to sit down and listen to you until you get finished. You'll have people stop and they'll tell you, they'll be like, oh, I'm trying to ask you something, and you're supposed to be a God-fearing man, and you're not going to let me talk to you? Well, the last time you came and wanted to talk to me, you wanted to talk to me about something that was totally dumb. And listen, sometimes I tell people this, and I know I'm talking about discretion, but sometimes you got to call a spade a spade. You're like, I'm not going to have a conversation with you about how you felt you were right to cheat on your boyfriend. I'm not going to talk to you about that, and you're trying to convince me that it's right. That sounds dumb. Yeah, but he deserved it. Okay. So that could agree with a fool and depart, right? Sure. No, but men, and this is the conversation, and this is how it plays out. Men do things sometimes that make women want to do that. And that's what men need to understand. I'm not having this conversation. There's somebody else who may want to have this conversation with you. But go from the presence of a foolish man, for thou will not perceive the lips of knowledge. What are we going to attain from this conversation? Because if I sit down and I go, oh, okay, I understand your point, what ends up happening? Somebody goes and they be like, oh, he agrees with me. He said he seen my point. Sometimes men do deserve to be cheated on. And it's foolishness. This is not the wisdom that we deal with. See, a lot of times to understand how to build and grow and to be better, we need to make sure that we surround ourselves by individuals who will make us better. You ever try to have a Shabbat conversation around somebody who doesn't want to have a Shabbat conversation? How does that play itself out? Somebody's going to eventually get upset. Somebody's going to not want to talk about something that's happening. You know, when I was in Philadelphia last week, I heard Rabbi Shalom say this. And he was talking to his son, and he said it, and it was important. He said, the important things in life are the people around you. And he stopped right there. He said, I want you to understand that no matter what you do in life, the people around you is what's important. Those will be the people who will build you up, and those will be the same people who will break you down. When you got stabbed in the back, it was because you allowed somebody to get too close to you that you should have never allowed to get that close to you. And when you make it through your heartache, it's because you surrounded yourself with individuals who promoted you, who stopped and told you how to get through your heartache and told you how to get past the feelings that you were having, and it's okay to move on. And that's why you can do better, and you thank God for people like that. I focus on this because amends pleads for fools. We're our own worst critics. How much longer am I going to keep apologizing to myself for allowing people to do things that hurt my feelings before I decide to do something about it? And so I say the same thing for us. You can't keep slapping yourself on the thigh, hitting yourself in the forehead, and wondering days on end why I keep allowing these things to happen. Eventually, you have to take an action. But among the upright, there is goodwill. I sit down, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but you have to know what makes you happy. You have to know what makes you happy and what doesn't make you happy. Because once you find out what makes you happy, and once you finally discern what doesn't make you happy, that's when you will be able to avoid the problems of your life far quicker than if you stop and you're like, oh, I'm going to give this person a chance. Oh, well, I don't know. I'm going to give this person a chance, and I'm going to give this person a chance. Moreh Mishael taught me very well. He stopped and said, he's like, listen, you don't just give somebody a plate of trust. It's all right. You deserve for people to earn your trust. It is yours. You own it. You have no obligation to give them everything that they want from you. It goes on to read.
10. The heart knoweth its own bitterness, and with its joy no strangers can intermeddle. The house of the wicked shall be overthrown, but the tent of the upright shall flourish. There is that which seemeth right
Unto a man,
but the end thereof are the ways of death.
people who know it all, people who can't listen to anybody, people who always like, oh yeah, that's just what she has to say. That's just what he has to say. My father don't know, my mother don't know, my grandmother don't know, my grandfather don't know, my uncle don't know, my aunt don't know. Well, who knows? Nobody knows except you. But for some reason or another, everybody's trying to talk to you to tell you something for yourself. I was talking to a young lady the other week, and I stopped and I tried to tell her, I'm like, hey, listen. Crying doesn't resolve problems. Let me say that one more time. Crying does not resolve problems. Crying makes you feel better, but you still got to do something after you finish crying. As a person who has cried, and you know, I think that there's this misperception amongst people that if you cry, people will become sympathetic towards you, and then after people become sympathetic towards you, they won't do things that will make you cry anymore. But is that the case? Every wise person will know it doesn't work out like that. You have to understand what you need to do for you, because just because it seems right to you does not make it right. Just because you have people who agree with you and go and do your dirt with you, that doesn't make it right. The ends thereof are the ways of death. I stop and say, you know, Amos, you just turned 19. And your father's doing a wonderful job with you. Think about the type of man you want to be. Think about the type of husband you want to be. And think about the type of wife you want to have. Don't get in the relationship and stop and say, oh, I think I can handle this. Been there, done that, don't work. Don't stop and think that two can walk together and they be disagreed. You can't be on two different pages. I want you to dress modest, and you want to dress not so modest. I want to say a prayer, and you don't think it's important to pray. I'm trying to teach my daughter how to be a lady, and you don't mind her acting like a whore. At one point, something's going to have to give. And so when it talks about the house of the wicked shall be overthrown, how much longer do you think you're going to be able to establish yourself knowing that you know the Most High God and wicked things are going on in your home? How do you think that you can establish yourself and you know that wicked things are going on in the congregation and you refuse to address them? I sit down and I say about this thing about judgment. We want it and hate it at the same time. We want judgment because we want justice for ourselves. But you can't want justice for yourself and see your brother or your sister suffering and not do anything about it. God sees us. It goes on to read.
13. Even in laughter the heart acheth.
Ain't that the truth?
And the end of mirth is heaviness.
Right. You sit down, you like, listen, you can try and laugh it away. You can try and cry it away. You can try and drink it away. Whatever you think you're going to do to make it go away, at the end of it all, when that happens, the problem is sitting there right in your face. How you going to deal with it? It goes on to read.
14. The dissembler in heart shall have his fill from his own ways, and a good man shall be satisfied from himself.
So that's that understanding our own happiness, right? A good man shall be satisfied from himself. Learn to understand how God made you. Learn to understand what makes you happy and do the things that make you happy, and at the same time build your house. It goes on to read.
The dissembler in heart shall have his fill from his own. 15. The thoughtless believeth every word, but the prudent man looketh well to his goings. A wise man feareth and departeth from evil, but the fool behaveth overbearingly and is confident.
False confidence. Nothing's ever going to happen to me. It's all right. The thoughtless believes every word. He said it, so it must be right. You know what? I kind of agree with him too. I think he's right. You know what? She got a point. But all three of them disagree. Who's right? Well, they're all kind of right, right? Do we hear how stupid that sounds? That sounds foolish in every sense of the word. You'd be like, listen, they all can't be right. It's the same way where I hear people talk about, well, listen, don't we all serve the same God? No, we don't. It's been the same argument since the beginning of time. Well, you call him one, and I call him this, and I call him this, but he's the creator of us all. Well, if we're all the same, how come we're all not reading the same book? Yeah, that was a pause because I was like, I'm not going to say that. Because I was going to say something about what brothers do. But I don't want this to be a bashing session. I want us to understand how to walk in the wisdom that God gave us. Because prudence tells us to set a path for our lives. And you know, setting the path for your life, although life may bring things your way, that doesn't mean you still cannot achieve your goal. Sometimes we have setbacks. Sometimes we have stumbling blocks. But the idea is to get past it. That's why it says, and it talks about the prudent man looking well to his going, because that person needs to stop and understand that even though life may have presented certain things to you, you can still get past it. It goes on to read.
17. He that is soon angry dealeth foolishly, and a man of wicked devices is hated. The thoughtless come into possession of folly, but the prudent are crowned with knowledge.
Okay. He that is soon angry dealeth foolishly. Can we relate to that? Y'all kind of quiet, but I know y'all. You know, we justify why we're angry. I don't usually get like this, but sometimes somebody kind of needs to be cursed out, and it makes me feel better. Is that good? Why would we let people push our buttons? Why would we let people pull our strings? I said this before and I'll say it again. Sometimes your silence alone can infuriate people. Stop. Somebody want to argue with you, and you just walk away. And don't start laughing. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Like, wait a second, I'm angry right now, and he's over there laughing. I told y'all, listen, took me a while to figure it out, but I knew it. Go argue with yourself. You'll be fine. Because guess what? How often does the argument lead to resolution? The argument. Like y'all start yelling at each other, and then at the end you be like, you know what, you're right. And I'm sorry, and y'all shake hands. Or what do y'all do? Y'all hug it out, right? That's what happens? It never happens like that. It never works like that. Give me a second. They gave me a note. Don't be like that. Yes, it did. So I lost my train of thought. Go ahead, continue on.
19. The evil bow before the good, and the wicked at the gates. And the wicked at the gates of the righteous. The poor is hated even of his own neighbor, but the rich have many friends.
Right. Why? Because the rich has gifts, right? If I'm around the rich, I can go get something from him. The poor guy, he's coming to ask me. He wants some of what I have. Nobody really likes somebody who's always asking, right? But we have to be a people that understand that it's okay to give to the poor because the Most High already said the poor will always be around. And there's a difference. Just because I have, you do not become my dependent, right? So I can help you, but understand there's a cutoff point to my help. And if I can't help myself, it does not make sense that I'm helping you. You got people who twist scriptures and expect you to pay their rent, pay their mortgage, pay their child support. I'm telling you, I had a guy hit me up on my inbox on Facebook. Listen, I need to pay my child support. I didn't respond to him. But I promise you, I felt like saying, I got my own child support issues, bro. Welcome to the club. That's what I felt like saying. But the reality is that when you can help, help if you can. But there's some people who are poor due to their own decisions in life. There are some people that actually can do for themselves, but refuse to do for themselves. That's the fool. The fool stops and says, oh, I don't want to cook dinner. I'm going to hang out all day. And so I know Zamazar Car, they always eat dinner in their house. I'm going to knock on his door around 7:30 when they're eating dinner. I don't want a whole plate, Doc. I just want a saucer. What fools do. Don't y'all throw out food? I know y'all got leftovers. So you've been watching my whole household and everything that's going on there because now I'm supposed to feed you. I'm supposed to give you a couple of dollars. I'm only asking you for $1. You ever get that one? I'm not asking you for a lot. I'm asking you for $1. You ain't got $1? Obviously, you ain't got $1, or you wouldn't be talking to me about this now, would we? Be going. And so I want us to understand the difference between those who need help. Because guess what? With help comes what? Humility. Be humble. I know when somebody needs help and when somebody's just trying to get over. And I don't have an obligation to you because if I seen you get over on him, and him, and you think that I'm about to let you get over on me because now it's my turn, it's not how it works. That's not how God taught us. God taught us how to be wiser than that. And let me tell you, that's part of the problem when we start arguing amongst ourselves because we don't want to call people out for who and what they do, for who they are and what they do. It goes on to read.
21. He that despiseth his neighbor sinneth, but he that is gracious unto the humble, happy is he.
Come on.
Shall they not go astray that devise evil?
Of course they will.
But mercy and truth shall be for them that devise good.
Right. Your intentions are eventually known. You know what happens with people who have evil intentions? When they're discovered, everything goes left. Then they have the nerve to get upset at you because you call them out for the evil things that they do. But if you have good intentions, when you pray to God, God will eventually show you people for who they are. You just have to believe that in your heart. You know, how often do we pray for good friends and good family? We have this thing, like, I just do not understand it. There's this unspoken code of, like, no matter what my family does, that's still my family. Oh, foe, right? Family over everything? You're like, listen, stop it. There's certain people I just don't get down with. Messing with him, messing with her, I'll be caught up in some credit card scam, fighting for my job, trying to explain to the judge how that's not my signature. Oh, but you know what? That's my mother. That needs to be said sometimes so it can resonate with people. I'm not saying give your mother over to the cops, but there's some times where you got to know what to separate yourself from. I don't know nothing about this, and I'm gone. Shall they not go astray that devise evil? How long do you think it's going to be before somebody catches up to you? And then, will the judgment be worth what you're doing right now? It goes on to read.
23. In all labor there is profit, but the talk of the lips tendeth only to penury. The crown of the wise is their riches, but the folly of fools remaineth folly. A true witness delivereth souls, but he that breatheth forth lies is all deceit.
Come on.
In
the fear of Yahweh,
a man has strong confidence, and his children shall have a place of refuge.
Why is that? Because God realizes, if we remember what God said about Abraham, he said, will he not command his house to do that which is right? Shall I not tell Abraham what I plan to do? For I know he will command his house to do that which is right. That's the refuge. Not that Abraham didn't have problems. Not that he didn't have problems within his own family, including outside of his family. But the reality is that in spite of all of his problems, God was always with him. That's the part that we have to learn to get to. We're looking for this life of utopia. I'm going to be rich. I'm going to have 82 wives. They're all going to sing Kumbaya because they all love me. All my children are going to serve God. And they're all going to live with me, and they're all going to do everything that I do because I said it. And just because I said it, they're going to understand that they need to be faithful children to me because honor your father and your mother, right? And so life will be good. But the reality is that that's not life. The reality is that problems will happen, problems will occur, disagreements will go down, but you ask God to give you the wisdom to reach righteous resolution so that as we build and grow, that once we understand that we can get through our problems, that's somebody who I can be around. That's how we're going to unite, you know. That's how we're going to unify, you know. Because it's going to be, not that I agree with everybody in this room and how they feel about X, Y, and Z, but the reality is that I know this person has my best interest in mind. I know that this person wants to serve the Most High God, and even though we disagree right now, there will be a righteous resolution. In the fear of Yahweh, a man has strong confidence. That's the confidence that we need to have. It goes on to read.
27. The fear of Yahweh is the fountain of life, to depart from the snares of death.
So see.
In the multitude of people is the king's glory, but in the want of people is the ruin of the prince. He that is slow to anger is of great understanding, but he that is hasty of spirit exalteth folly.
When you're hasty, you want to do everything right now, automatically because you think it's right. And you know what? I must be right because I'm the leader. I must be right because, oh wait, here's the better one. I must be right. I'm the vice president. How can I get it wrong? No, exactly. That was funny. He that is slow to anger, don't worry about it. If you're right, it will play itself out. I sit down, and this is something that I've been teaching myself about more and more lately. Just sit back and watch it happen. Some people sometimes need to just see it for themselves. And guess what? If it doesn't happen, then guess who's wrong? You. And then you need to humble yourself and admit that you was wrong and get on board with the ship. When you don't have humility, you can't do that. You know, it's important for somebody to like you, you know. I hear people talk about it, be like, listen, you know, I ain't got that many friends. Really? Why don't you have friends? I can understand, I'm not talking about the popularity contest. I'm not talking about saying shalom, hello to everybody you know on the street. I'm talking about why don't you have people that's within your circle that are people of good character? You know what that builds for you? 2 words, support system. And everybody needs it. Everybody has to have it. And if we don't think about the support system that we need, and if we continue to isolate ourselves from people, the better things in life will never come to us. It goes on to read.
30. A tranquil heart is the life of the flesh, but envy is rottenness of the bones.
Tranquil heart, a peaceful heart, calm. We need peace and calm in our life. And just because somebody's trying to take you there, we need to learn to allow people not to take us there. It goes on to read.
He that oppresseth the poor blasphemeth his maker.
Because that's
he
wicked.
That is gracious unto the needy honoreth him.
Tosif.
The wicked is thrust down in his misfortune, but the righteous, even when he is brought to death, have hope.
Right, because the wicked person, God is showing him something, and God is showing the rest of the people that's watching him something. The righteous man, we understand that there's a hope for him. Because even though everything may have been taken away from him, what does he have left? The Most High God. It goes on to read.
33. In the heart of him that has discernment, wisdom resteth. But in the inward parts of fools, it maketh itself known. Righteousness exalteth a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people.
Highlight that line. Proverbs 14:34. Righteousness exalts a nation. The very reason why we're in our captivity, the very reason why we suffer from what we suffer from, is because we chose not to serve Yah, and we chose to do things our own way. And so the sin that was a reproach to us put us in the state that we're in now, where we argue about how we should look and what we should look like and how it is to serve God and what the name of God is. How we argue with one another to the point where we even believe there's no profit in living around one another. We believe there's profit in not living around one another. We believe that there's profit in not having a judgment. We even believe that there's better profit in following the laws of the land than following the laws of the Most High God. And so when that happens, we have to understand us not trusting in God with all our heart and with all our soul, that's exactly why God hates us. Finish it out.
The king's favor is toward a servant that dealeth wisely, but his wrath striketh him that dealeth shamefully.
You can say hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Hoping and praying that y'all got something out of what I said, and that the Most High God found these words acceptable to be spoken before his people,